Down to Dallas we go. First time on CHGO Bears Podcast.
Let's go.
Jesse Holley, welcome. Appreciate you being here on Twitter. If you want to follow Jesse, it is as I, of course, clicked off Jesse's thing a second ago. That's a great job by me. But don't worry, I'll recover.
At Mr. Fourth and Long.
Thank you.
Mr.
At Mr. Fourth and Long, one
Long.
of the coolest Twitter handles that
you.
are going.
Yeah.
All right. Let's just start at the top here, Jesse. Should the Bears hire Mike McCarthy? What do you think?
No, honestly. If you're looking for innovative, if you're looking for something that's going to take Caleb Williams to the next level and his team to the next level, I don't think Mike McCarthy would be your head coach. Now, if you said to me that Mike McCarthy was coming in to be your head coach, but we were bringing in an offensive coordinator to pair with him, then I may say, okay, because he is good with the players. He takes care of the guys. That's one thing that you've heard resounding when it comes from the Cowboys locker room about Mike McCarthy, that he takes care of his players. He's a guy who does have some credibility. But the thing that kind of drew stale and old here in Dallas was that just Mike McCarthy just didn't have the modern day game really working for him. And he's, we've jokingly said about when he initially took the job, he talked about how he was in the barn and he was watching all of the film and then later found out that was a lie. He said that. That's not something I made up. But then you also, you hear his conversation. He talks about, hey, I'm a West Coast offense guy. I learned this offense 30 years ago. And that's the problem, is that you learned an offense 30 years ago and it's yet to be revamped, is yet to be revolutionized. And so you can still have some West Coast components, but step up into the pre-snap motion, step up into the setting plays up, step up into the, really getting guys open. You look at the numbers. The Cowboys in the last 2 years had the tightest coverage for contested catches in the league. They were up there in the top 2 or 3 every single year because the routes that come along with that offense just doesn't bode well for separation from receiver to cornerback. And so, listen, you guys, you got Caleb Williams. You're looking to take a leap into the 2025 season and really make a splash because you do have a dynamic quarterback. And you need to pair a dynamic quarterback with a dynamic play caller, play schemer, play maker. I used to say it publicly, steal. Just steal. Just sit in your office and just play back and watch games from other teams from college and say, hey, I need 3 plays from there, 3 plays from there, 3 plays from there, 3 plays from there. And hell, you got an offense that's a high-powered and explosive just by stealing the other things that you see from the innovative coaches across the league.
All right, well then, just from a solution-based standpoint, if the Bears were to hire Mike McCarthy, obviously they interview him tomorrow, and you're saying, his play calling isn't innovative enough, can he be the guy that comes in as the CEO type, puts more of his emphasis on developing Caleb Williams, and brings in a play caller to be the offensive coordinator and doesn't have that as part of his responsibility here in Chicago? Could you see that being a scenario?
Let me ask this question. And this is not a crap on Mike McCarthy day, because I was one when the hire was coming up. I thought he was going to be able to come in here and change, things. But when you start talking about developing the quarterback, like what are we developing here? Because I get that Brett Favre was Brett Favre, right? And Aaron Rodgers was Aaron Rodgers, right? And I don't think he developed Dak Prescott here in Dallas. Damn sure didn't develop Trey Lance. We were asking, what is Trey Lance? What is he as a player? Is he good? Is he bad? Can he be improved? Can he not be improved? So I just don't know if this is the guy that will develop Caleb Williams. I do think he will give structure. I do think he can teach ball. I think if there are some learning things that Caleb Williams has to kind of digest, I do think Mike can help with that. But again, you want the next step. You want the jump up. You want the thing that's going to take this thing and to outer space. The retread for me were these guys, their fundamental foundation of what they are as play callers, that's an old school mindset. And so you're talking about developing a new school athlete and a new school era with new school players, I just think you need a new school dude to do that.
Yeah, well, we're scared because we've failed when we've tried that.
Well, and right. And so, I mean, Jesse, you played in the league 2 years with the Cowboys. Like, the Bears players, they're looking for, at least from what I can tell, the alpha coach guy, because if you bring in what you're talking about, the scheme guy, and then the Bears can't run the scheme and he's not used to being the head guy, well, then where are you at? And then it's like, it's a sort of a slow drip to like, okay, you're out the door and let's try this again. So, I mean, that's kind of the concern here. Like, if you put your playing shoes back on, would you be worried about the hotshot guy coming in here?
If I would welcome it. I want the guy to come in there with the new ideas, with fresh ideas. And when you talk about an alpha head coach, here's where I may be a little bit, when it comes to Mike McCarthy, maybe not even the best person to answer it, because the dynamic that is here in Dallas, it makes it very difficult for your head coach to be the alpha guy, because there is a, and this is not new or modern, and it's not just a Mike McCarthy thing. It was that way with Jason Garrett. I played for Jason Garrett. It was that way for Wade Phillips. The last time that you really, truly had an alpha guy that was allowed to kind of, really let his kahunas hang and really be in charge was Bill Parcells. And there was even some pushback with that because he was giving players that he didn't even want, that he had to deal with. That's the part about being here in Dallas, is that you don't really get a chance to assert your alphaness because your owner, general manager, and president is the guy who the players who have contracts that are worth money, they go see that guy. That guy a lot of times handles those guys. So when you're hearing the conversations about being an alpha, look at the Zeke Elliott situation where, he gets suspended because he's cussing out his head coach and he's having some other issues and he's showing up late and things that have you. But the very next week he comes back in and he leads the team and carries. So it's like, but everyone knows that a guy like Zeke Elliott is not a Mike McCarthy guy. It's a Jerry Jones guy. So I would say that when it comes to being an alpha, I don't know how much that, because I didn't get a chance to see that in the 5 years that Mike McCarthy was here.
That's interesting. I mean, it's what we see from afar here, obviously, with Jerry wanting to be front and center all the time. But it's like, I mean, McCarthy was asked recently, campaign for yourself. He's like, well, I don't like to do that, but I win. That's what I do. And I was like, okay, well, that's, to use your terminology, that's putting your cojones out there pretty far. Like, hey man, look at my record. Look at do you see that Super Bowl ring? Do you see the fact that I had 3 straight seasons where I won 12 games in Dallas? When's the last time that happened down there, by the way? So, and plus, he knows the division. But here, let's pivot, because if we're talking about Jerry, he's moving towards Deion pretty rapidly here, and Deion appears to be interested. I was watching you on your Unfiltered show saying that, hey, or maybe that was a clip from elsewhere. You've also got Unfiltered, very busy man. You're saying, look, I'll be the one to say it. Dallas ain't hiring a black guy. I mean, Deion is very much a black man. Do you think that this is a real thing with Deion going to Dallas? And if not, Bears fans are going to get real worried that, get excited that maybe Ben Johnson, or we'll get worried, that Ben Johnson might be the next candidate up here, and the Bears are going to lose out on their number one guy to Big D.
Yeah, I think the Jerry Jones, Deion Sanders conversation is all marketing, right? When you look at how things begin to come out, you look at this and you go, hey, you scratch my back, I scratch yours. Deion is currently in contract negotiations with Colorado, right? What does Jerry love more than anything? To have the attention of the media. Right? Like, you're talking about going into wild card weekend last week, and he was the lead story heading into wild card weekend. It was a Sunday's game because he talked about, potentially, or the Monday game with talking with Deion Sanders. And so this thing is so, you're not getting Shador, right? So Deion said, if I coach, I want to coach my sons. You're not getting Shador. Because if you cut Dak Prescott, you owe it's $100-something million towards the cap. That's not happening. Oh, by the way, he has a no trade clause, so that's not happening. I think the thing with Deion is Jerry just Jerry doing Jerry things, and Deion. The name sounds great, but most importantly, Jerry's ego could not take Deion Sanders being the head coach of the Dallas Cowboys. If you remember back to the early 90s when he and Jimmy Johnson broke up that dynasty that they had with Troy Aikman and Michael Irvin and those guys, it was because Jerry couldn't take the fact that a lot of the people in the media were saying this was Jimmy Johnson's team. Jimmy Johnson built this team. This is the reason why this team is winning, because of Jimmy Johnson. And Jerry's like, hold the hell up 1 second now. I was the guy that was bleeding $1 million a month. I was the guy that hired this first-time college coach. I was the guy who brought these players in. This is on me. And they were like, yeah, but this guy. And I think that would be times 100 if it was Deion Sanders. He would become the most popular sports figure in the world if Deion Sanders became the head coach of the Cowboys. Deion Sanders is not going to let Jerry Jones push him around and tell him what to do and when to do it, how he wants to do it with these players, or how to build a roster. So it sounds great. It looks great. It makes great for media. Trust and believe you me. Your guys over at DLLS, we love it because it's giving us something to talk about all week long. But it's so far-fetched and so far from even happening. And not because he's black. It's because he's Deion Sanders. That won't work here in Dallas for Jerry Jones.
Do you think that the Cowboys messed this process up by waiting so long to figure out what they wanted to do with Mike McCarthy and now missing the window to talk to a guy like Ben Johnson, who now they have to wait until their season is concluded to get into this coaching search with him? And obviously there's a arms race between 4 teams trying to get Ben Johnson, and now the Cowboys have to kind of wait their turn.
Absolutely. On our show today, I went on a mini rant about just Jerry wasting time. And the thing with Jerry is that he believes that, the world spins on my axis, right? It's as the Jerry world turns. And so because I find it very hard to believe that you just figured out 2 days ago that Mike McCarthy wasn't going to be your head coach. Like, there had to be an inkling. There had to be some sort of notion that happened between now and then. You knew what the offer you were going to give him. If this was the route that you were going to do this, do it 7 weeks ago. Do it 6 weeks ago. Because now you have a head start. You could have interviewed Mike Vrabel, if that's where you wanted to go. But then you drag your feet, and you're talking about just the other day, you guys are just having a chance to review offense, defense, and players and personnel, and you didn't even get to contract negotiations yet. And then when you get the contract, it's just a lot of just stuff that, what else are you doing? Is this the most important thing on the ledger? Where is picking the next head coach of the Dallas Cowboys fall on your honey-do list, right? Because this thing has to get going. And now if Ben Johnson or Aaron Glenn or Kellen Moore or whatever other coach that you may have wanted to interview, at least to just have the conversation, you now have to wait. That means your scouts are kind of putting on hold because, hey, I know what players that we need, but will the players that we need fit what the coaches that come in here want offensively, defensively? And so these type of things you look at and you say, boy, did we waste some precious time just dragging our feet. But go back and look. This is how Jerry operates. He did the same thing with contracts, CeeDee Lamb's contract, Dak Prescott's contract. He'll probably do the same thing with Micah Parsons' contract. He did it with Zeke Elliott's contract. He did it with Zach Martin's contract. He just decides, I'm going to drag my feet. I'm going to give them an offer that they're probably going to refuse, and then I'll, fiddlesticks around a little bit and come back to it later on and still have to pay out what I didn't want to pay out to begin with.
Did you happen to hear Troy Aikman's comments before the game last night where he talked about where he disagreed that Dallas isn't this, the place that everyone has to go, like the Lakers or the Yankees, of the NFL anymore, and that perception may be skewed by some because you say the world spins on Jerry's axis in his own mind, but is the Dallas job as enticing, from a perception standpoint around the league as maybe some Cowboys fans might think it is?
I think Cowboy fans are starting to realize that there's a difference between coveted and still being a good job, right? The Dallas Cowboys is still a good job. I agree with Troy. I don't think it's a coveted job anymore, because if it was, you would have had guys like Ben Johnson and Aaron Glenn and those other who everyone now is clamoring for. Those guys would have been rushing to get to this position. They would have made sure during the bye week that they reached out and just checked the temperature if that was going to happen. So I agree with Troy. I think that the Cowboys' job, because people are looking around and saying, man, we're I know that we're seeing from the outside, but we live in the age of social media where a lot of things are at our fingertips, and they're seeing how it is to be the head coach of the Dallas Cowboys and knowing the ramifications of what you have to deal with Jerry Jones being your boss. And it's a difficult job. It wears you out. Ben Johnson talked about, I want to be in alignment. I want to know that when I take a job somewhere, that me and the general manager and I know where they went wrong. I know why they went wrong, and I know how they're going to fix it. I don't think you're going to get that if you come into Dallas. Jerry's going to be like, it was that guy. It wasn't us. But, a lot of times the common denominator of this thing in the last 27, 28, 29 years is you've been through many coaches. You've been through many Pro Bowl, Hall of Fame type players. The one common denominator is that you have to work under the conditions of which Jerry Jones put you under.
Two questions on the way out here, Jesse. Number one, in your opinion, better job, Dallas or the Bears?
Ooh. Dallas. Yeah. Well, I think the Bears are still trying to find their way. At least with Dallas, you're going to win a little bit more games. You're going to be in the national spotlight. You're going to have the national televised games. And if for some reason, and I know that the Bears are a historic program, but if for some reason, if you turn the Bears around and they won a Super Bowl, it would not have the same effect if you turn the Cowboys around and they won a Super Bowl. So that's always the hanging fruit of you will go down as a legend if you turn around the Cowboys and take them back to glory.
That one's, we'll fight you on that one. If you win in Chicago, Jesse, there is no better place to do it. Damn it. Look at Ditka. They're still talking about him to the end of the year.
Yeah, in Chicago.
Well,
not around the world. Not around the world.
Well, okay, fine. If you want to say that, I mean,
get him out of here.
I mean, I suppose if MJ was a Mav, they'd still be talking about him. But
the hardest hit you ever took from a Chicago Bear in your playing career. Now that you're making me mad.
Ooh, the hardest hit. It was me hitting Devin Hester.
Oh,
that's really gonna make him mad. This is Devin Hester's cousin. You wouldn't know.
That's interesting. I'd like to hear that story because not too many people could catch him.
I know. We had a good plan for Devin Hester.
There you go. I like it.
Well, okay. Let me do one more on the way out. If the Bears hire Mike McCarthy, the best thing about, I'm not saying they're going to, but whatever. He's in that second tier, I think. If the Bears hire Mike McCarthy, the best thing about that for Chicago will be, and the worst thing on the other side is,
you'll have stability. The players will like Mike McCarthy. You'll have some stability. You'll have some consistency. The players will like Mike McCarthy. The worst thing is that McCarthy won't get you past the Vikings. He won't get you past Green Bay. You'll be competitive, but you'll still be kind of looking up to those other guys in the division.
I mean, I think some Bears fans would take that. Oh, we're in the mix. They like you. We're not a disaster. We go to the playoffs.
You won't be a disaster. You won't be a disaster. That part, you won't be a disaster.
Yeah. Well, as my guy Scott Lewis said from 79th in the House, he said, Mike McCarthy has 11 playoff wins in his career. If you count the Bears' last 11 playoff wins, you have to go all the way back to 1963. Do what you want with that information.
Shout out Ed Obradovich. Hey, Jesse, this was a ton of fun. We appreciate you making time. We know you're a busy guy doing a million things, so thank you for the knowledge and the entertainment.
Absolutely. I'm going to go shampoo my floors now.
There you go.
Jesse Holley, former Cowboy, DLLS host.
We all silly like the mayor.